الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العظيم. سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Okay. I shut my video off, Leyya.
I think yours can be on, Adnan, and proceed. Bismillah. Surah Najm.
Start. Is everybody in?
Yes.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والنجم إذا هوى ما ضل صاحبكم وما غوى وما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى علمه شديد القوى ذو مرة فاستوى وهو بالأفق الأعلى ثم دنا فتدلى فكان قاب قوسين أو أدنى.
Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillah. The Quran is a manual to lead us towards the essence, the origin, and the destiny of human experiences that we call our life. The Quran gives us a clue or an entry point or an indication to all what concerns this amazing being, which we call the Adamic Homo sapiens sapien, who can pay attention to earthly, physical, material, chemical entities, and is all the time seeking connection, relationships, cause and effect, knowledge, in order for us to understand the immediate environment around us. But that's not enough. We want to know what is behind the hill, behind the mountain, beyond the universe. What is at the end of the universe? How can something go to the end of the universe, which is endless, and be back in no time? On and on and on. So the human being is the ultimate culmination of evolution from pure primal aspect of life, caring for life in the bacteria or a microbe or whatever as it began, but then ultimately able to transcend it, to lose the identity and float or flow with the wave function, with the light of reality. We are both. You're earthly, heavenly. You are celestial, terrestrial. You are an alien from beyond any ability to decide where and when and how, yet you're journeying on earth. There is physicality, you have pain, you appreciate it. You have need, you can express it. You are all the time pursuing to neutralize yourself. Everybody at any moment in life, including right now, myself included, I am pursuing that which will give me a bit of contentment, which is to share with you what I have also been gifted to share in it, understand it. So generosity to do with flow. So you want to share it. Whenever he was honored, he says, oh, I only wish others, my people, my close ones knew. Know that you always want to share goodness, because the source is goodness, the destiny is goodness, and what the moment is, its energy emanates from goodness. So there are numerous ways of interpreting some of these ayahs. This surah is an early one, and probably one of the earliest in which it's a clear declaration that Muhammad is connected with the absolute, and therefore he is receiving from, if you like, beyond the beyond signals that us, the other feeble human beings, are not able to. They're limited. Their instruments is not as finely tuned as that of the pure heart and the pure mind and the clear mind of the Prophet. So when the end comes and the collapse of the stars is evident, it's not the end. It's only an end of a cycle. So this whole idea that everything ends what? It's within space and time. It ends. Nur of Allah has no beginning and no end because it belongs to another zone of consciousness. We, each one of us, is mostly able to discern, to experience, to share that which is within the confinement of space and time. It is the earthly womb, limited. It's for that reason nothing ever will be enough for anybody with modicum intelligence. Not enough, because your ruh min amri rabbi. قال ألست بربكم. So the ruh knows the nur of the rububiyyah, which is boundless, not subject to limitations of space and time, the 4 dimensions of the second womb. So what happens when the stars go? What about your own inner star, your own awakened to the realization of illusion of separation? When that ends, you are light. You are back to the ruh situation. So when your inner najm, when your own inner illusion of separateness, of identity, of being a photon ends, there is only the wave function. There is only eternal life as it was, as it is. So this surah is the most important one in that it declares there is this most important zone of reality, of truth, that is like the quantum field from which every other field emerges, so to speak. It is boundless, but it is not subject to mental discourse. It's beyond that. The mind is a result of life manifesting in this form. So it connects the form with its origin, which is your soul or your ruh. So the mind is an intermediate zone. What if all of that goes? The truth still remains. The truth is eternal, and it is fully within every soul. Every soul carries the knowledge of that cosmic reality. It's beyond the mind to comprehend. So we need to accept the mind for our earthly reasons. It's for that reason more than half the Quran is Sharia. It's to do with earthly reason. So you don't quarrel over stupid things. There has to be some sort of a measure of balance, of appropriateness, of having the right, if you like, evaluation of it. But this is only for your earthly existence. Most of our time, if not majority of everybody's time, is taken by earthly balance, up and down, good or bad, cooked or not cooked, appropriate or not, halal or haram, and. What about the purpose of your life? The purpose of your life is to be at one with life. You need to go beyond all of those existential dualities and needs. You have to satisfy them. That's why you can't escape it. فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ. Only after you have dealt with them, then you can be ready and you can be in every way aware as to the ever-presence of that which is present, but to our feeble mind it appears to be absent. Bismillah.
You're on mute, Adnan. Just begin reciting again.
Sorry about that. فأوحى إلى ربه ما أوحى فأوحى إلى عبده ما أوحى ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى أفتمارونه على ما يرى ولقد رآه نزلة أخرى عند سدرة المنتهى عندها جنة المأوى إذ يخشى السدرة ما يخشى ما زاغ البصر وما طغى لقد رأى من آيات ربه الكبرى.
Bismillah. These are serious declarations, and maybe the most clear, the most compact in the surah, announcing that this being, Muhammad, had been exposed to another zone of consciousness or reality or haqq that cannot be described clearly to the feeble minds. So this ayah clearly tells us that the Muhammadi being is the intermediate zone between the physical reality of humanity, duality, plurality, and that zone of beyond the Sidrat al-Muntaha, is beyond anything that is discernible. In other words, it's pure consciousness and light. It has not yet become evident in any manner, whether it's energy or any other way you can measure it. So it is before the manifestation of anything that alludes to dualities. So it says, this being, his heart, his soul, is fully attuned to the truth of absoluteness. And then from that absoluteness, and if one measure of this shift from the absolute to the beginnings of the potential relative is called Sidrat al-Muntaha. It is the tree that beyond which there is nothing. So if you can also, if you are more interested in basic modern physics, which I think will help more and more young people to understand all of this, it will be necessary for them to have the basics understandings that there are these other zones of consciousnesses that have different measures, different way of, same thing as the laws of physics are not at all the same as the basic laws of, if you like, metaphysics or chemistry or whatever. The quantum field cannot be in any way understood by our minds the same way as the gravitational, if you like, physics can be understood. It's another zone. It has its own, if you like, unpredictable, so to speak, from our point of view, wanting stability on Earth, we call it peculiar. But to its own self, this is how it is. The seen and the unseen mingle and change, and the speed becomes beyond any limits. And stars are born and stars die within each other, and we don't know which is the father, which is the mother, which is what, which is the origin and which is the destiny, because there is no more space and time confinement, so as we are cozy within it. So these ayahs declare that the prophetic being, the prophetic light, is exposed to the absolute. Therefore, he does not measure everything exactly as you and I do in giving them full importance. Or you say, that's it, you can't do that anymore. In other words, the prophetic light sees our life on earth as a tiny entry point, as a tiny preparation point to the infinite, or to that which is beyond measure and beyond comparison and beyond the relative. Bismillah.
أفرأيتم اللات والعزى ومناة الثالثة الأخرى ألكم الذكر وله الأنثى تلك إذا قسمة ضيزى إن هي إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان إن يتبعون إلا الظن وما تهوى الأنفس ولقد جاءهم من ربهم الهدى.
Now, the reference is to human habits, because we have evolved over the 50, 100, 200,000 years from being just creatures roaming around in groups, and which are sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller, hugging the shores of this earth, migrating from essentially the northeast of Africa, fanning out into wherever they could sustain themselves, smaller and bigger groups from 5, 6, 10 to maybe 100, 150, and then they split. So they began a process of evaluation, speculation, and wonderment as to what is bigger, what is greater, what is lasting longer, because they'd been exposed to sudden, if you like, deaths, events that they could not in any way adjust to. So there had been a lot of experience accumulating within the human, if you like, journey that you try to control, you try to predict, you try to adjust, you try to be flexible and flow with it. But many, many, many times events comes and supersedes all of it. And suddenly you find everything has gone to ash. Here you have built a civilization and a culture and so on, but you didn't know what's going on just a few kilometers down in the earth until Vesuvius erupts and everything is frozen and returns back to the cycle again. So the Quran tells us, but look at all of the deities they had, the Lata wal Uzza, and these were mostly, if you like, ideas of worshipping, because they saw in them certain qualities of durability, longevity, or totality. And they would have been stones, they could have been trees, they could have been all kinds of other things. It is in human nature to worship. It's deep in our drive, after trying to care with what is visible, discernible, touchable, smellable, edible, to that which is more durable, long-lasting, closer, if you like, to that which is eternal. It's in human nature. But look at this Lat and Uzza. Where is it? Where are they? Who are they? Are all symbols of our attempt to try and, in a way, orientate ourselves, step towards the eternal, Haqq, the absolute, God, reality, all of that. So this ayah tells us it's in human nature. You can't stop it. Once you're reasonably fed, content, you're not pursuing survival, whatever, you start wondering, how can it be forever? This is a good idea, this is a good product, this is a good connection. We want to maintain it forever. Therefore, you had so many of the early civilizations, especially the Pharaonic, telling you the whole story. And their obsession was with the journey after death. The Pharaonic civilization was based entirely on preparing the tomb and the other creatures with you to be your companions, the animals and the cats. And whenever the market supply and demand was out of balance, then suddenly you find thousands of mummified cats in one place because there were no buyers for them. So on and on, if you look at the meaning of it, you find we have been driven from the earliest prehistoric times towards unifying, connecting, relating to that which is eternal. Bismillah.
أم للإنسان ما تمنى فلله الآخرة والأولى وكم من ملك في السماوات لا تغني شفاعتهم شيئا إلا من بعد أن يأذن الله لمن يشاء ويرضى.
Now it comes back to us here. We human beings have drives, have hopes. In fact, without hope, you will not do anything. You will not even get out of your bed. If you don't think today may give you something a bit more than what you have already had, hope, good expectations, desire for a better destiny, which is at the end, this is what drives us. But also we're reminded you're not going to get whatever you desire, because the you is a confused you, is a mixture between an eternal light, your ruh, and millions of different, if you like, barriers between it, between that divine light and the outer manifestation, which you connect with through your 5 outer senses, which can only function because of your 5 inner senses. Therefore, you are a celestial, eternal light, functioning, alive, experiencing temporariness. Began when you were conceived. You carry out already the traces of the genes from your parents. Then you are born, and what you have carried out as discernible, if you like, genetic influences into an environmental connectedness. And the two combined, but as we know now more and more, that nature is your gene, what you are endowed with, but nurture can play a much bigger and more forceful role to make you understand things or be more flexible, adaptable, and so on. So it isn't according as what you wish. If everybody is given what they wish, I don't think there will be much life left after a few minutes on earth, because he wishes to rule over every country, so many others. He wishes to control this and that, so many others, and on and on and on. But each one of us have been given a kingdom, a universe, which is the amazing mechanism, which is physical, chemical, biological, and subtler electromagnetic, and all of the billions of neurons and the nerves in you. But we never stopped for a second to question that. How are you able to hear? Can't you imagine how much there is into that process of hearing alone? And we just take it for granted. And I am not able to hear now as much. But have you given it some thought before? Have you tried to exercise to improve the higher, if you like, electromagnetics of your hearing, rather than just cleaning your ears? We are very clumsy because we have given so much more attention to our animal side, our earthly side, without connecting it fully to its celestial, heavenly side. But even on the earthly side, it's according to reason, according to functionality. You have to understand the mechanism of that. You have to go to that school. You can't just understand the language by wishing it. You have to have time, effort, until you understand the language. And there are millions of languages. Your toes are trying to communicate with you that I've been too oppressed and depressed in the very tight shoes because you or somebody else liked to look at tight shoes. Idiot. So we should laugh at our stupidity, not at other people's stupidity. Now for that you have to cry. So we do not stop to reflect upon the amazing cosmology that we call it, so-called my arm, my hand, my fingers, my fingerprints. Each finger functions in a similar way to other fingers, or many other creatures and animals also pose, but no two fingers are the same. Fingerprints are different. Time and space is different. The reality that brings it about is the same. So we have to reflect more and more and more upon who is this insan, what is humanity, before we can start knocking at the door of divinity. The two are seamlessly connected. The absolute, the higher, the eternal, the divine permeates all what is known and unknown. Therefore, as such, everything that ever exists has been touched by the sacredness. Bismillah.
إن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة ليسمون الملائكة تسمية الأنثى وما لهم به من علم إن يتبعون إلا الظن وإن الظن لا يغني من الحق شيئا فاعرض عمن تولى عن ذكرنا ولم يرد إلا الحياة الدنيا ذلك مبلغهم من العلم إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بمن اهتدى.
This is the most amazing revelation so early on, because there were very few Muslims at that time, I would imagine. But this is a most potent advice. You cannot connect with those who do not accept this basic premise of faith, trust, and the idea of responsibility and duty in this life. They are confused. You can never make sense with them if there isn't that basic premise that there is a deity, a God, a reality, a truth that is timeless, and everything within time and space emanates from it. Therefore, we have to be in true reverence at all times so that we do not disturb the balance of the physical and the material and the chemical, so that we are more and more connected to the timelessness of its origin. Turn away from them, it says. You cannot connect with them. The same thing as a child has seen a father or somebody plugging in something to have an electric effect, a light or their video or something. So the child also thinks he's seen a plugging thing, but unless the other conditions are there, it won't work. So the other conditions in human connectedness is reverence, trust, faith, in that what we are experiencing now is only a prelude to what will come after we leave behind that which is not ours, which is an instrument to connect the infinite with the finite, which is body, mind, heart, cells, and all of the other amazing faculties in us. You cannot connect. There has to be preparatory, elementary fundamentals in your friendship with others. That is why we say kufr and iman cannot meet. Somebody is in ignorance. Kufr is to cover up, denial. It is lack of intelligence. Their intelligence is not high enough to overcome very basic, if you like, human foxiness. All the animals have got that. Trickery is in everywhere. Most creatures actually survive due to them exercising trickery so that they catch their prey. But with intelligence, you can see also sometimes the prey can be the predator. It can reverse. يخرج الحي من الميت. This is higher intelligence. With spiritual intelligence, then you're all the time calibrating not only the subtle intelligence part of your amazing faculties, but that affects also your physical faculties. It affects your physical, chemical, biological, hormonal realities. They all will adjust if your calibration is regular. Bismillah.
Adnan, you're quite soft. Can you start again and go do louder? There we go. Bismillah.
ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ليجزي الذين أساءوا بما عملوا ويجزي الذين أحسنوا بالحسنى الذين يجتنبون كبائر الإثم والفواحش إلا اللمم إن ربك واسع المغفرة هو أعلم بكم إذ أنشأكم من الأرض وإذ أنتم أجنة في بطون أمهاتكم ولا تزكوا أنفسكم هو أعلم بمن اتقى.
The first issue is that you and I start without even being in any way able to reflect upon life, or have a desire, or express a need. The newly born, baby. Then after a few months, this baby's consciousness and mind and the circuitry in the mind begins to develop certain things which it considers to be desirable, acceptable, or not, and so on and so on. So it moves on. Its own, if you like, personality, chemistry, whatever, begins to develop according to the genetic background and the environmental, if you like, impacts upon it. So by the time you're mature, you have a reasonable idea in that you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't like to suffer. You don't like others to suffer either. And so this is your natural, if you like, inner drive. But you will always make mistakes. You always have things falling from your hand, making time-wise, wrong timing, place-wise, wrong association, the wrong person, and on and on. So we make lots of mistakes. So this ayah tells us this is in your human nature. It's the nature of nature that you will make mistakes. Partly it will humble you. It makes you a little bit, I also made mistakes. You don't blame others for being wrong unless you also can see it in yourself. So there is equality in the human sense. As humans, we are essentially the same. We care for survival, we care for acceptance, appreciation, connectedness, and reflective mirrors that are not too dim. There is some light in them. So this is our basic nature. So Allah tells us, says, look, you will make mistakes. Small mistakes, small errors don't matter. But what matters most is what is deep in your own heart. That is where Allah will hold you accountable. You said something very silly. Well, fine. Apologize and move on. Everybody does that, as I said, because you are to be humble. You have not been focused. You have not been present. So you make mistakes. Not a big deal. But move on. Leave that in the past. Leave it behind in its own burial grounds. Don't carry it with you all the time. Then your mind gets clogged, as most people's minds are. The other issue there was that the last ayah, what was it? The last part? This is again about the self. Struggle has to continue towards your ruh. Because I am both. A nafs, which is a reflection of the ruh. It's a shadow of the ruh. It is the light shadow on earth. It is the shadow of the divine in me, upon me as a human. So my self is full of errors. It remembers and it forgets. If there is no forgetfulness, you cannot continue in life because you will be carrying tons of miserable memories. If you don't give them up, if you don't leave them behind, you're not fresh, you're not alive, and so on. So the ayah says, do not ever consider your nafs, your lower self, your ego self, your animal self can be purified. Its nature is to care for its own immediate contentment, pleasure, food, comfort, ease, and it favors itself over everything else. So that basic animal selfishness is deep, deep in the pattern of the self. The same way as in the pattern of the soul is the absolute light. That is in its essence. The essence of the nafs is the reverse, is earthly, physical, material. And each one of us is both earthly and heavenly. So the ayah says, don't ever consider the self, the ego, the animal side can be purified. But then the ayahs again remind us numerous times, it says, you have to constantly try to purify yourself, but you will never attain full purification of the lower self. As for the soul, it's ever pure. So leave it aside. If you can step aside of yourself, say, please excuse me, you've been a wonderful animal, I've got used to you, but please for 2 minutes stay in the zoo. I'll feed you and so on, but lock it up And then فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ. When you're finished with that, now you can stand up, وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب. Now you can desire that experience, which is the source of all experiences, called one. Bismillah.
أفرأيت الذي تولى وأعطى قليلا وأكدى أعنده علم الغيب فهو يرى أم لم ينبأ بما في صحف موسى وإبراهيم الذي وفى ألا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وإن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى وإن سعيه سوف يرى ثم يجزاه الجزاء الأوفى وإن إلى ربك المنتهى وإنه هو أضحك وأبكى وإنه هو أمات وأحيا.
Allah. I got lost because I got found. You give me a third of it to begin.
أفرأيت الذي
So wonderful to be
تولى
lost in the Quran.
أفرأيت الذي تولى وأعطى قليلا وأكدى
This is
عنده
again
علم
a human
الغيب.
issue. We are all mean. We try to always show that we are more generous. You know, whatever you and I give and donate and so on, we like it to appear to be more, because the nafs is there. So the nafs sees itself as a first, me. That's why if you ask a child to divide something they're eating in half, you always find there is a tendency of having the bigger half for oneself, because you love yourself. The only real constancy is the love of the self. But it isn't the self that you love. It is the giver of life to yourself that you love, which is your soul. But it appears to begin with is myself. I love myself. So, but it is ultimately, it is the spirit or the soul or the divine light that you truly love and obsessed with. But in between, you get obsessed with a cat or a mat or a lover or a husband or whatever else. These are all steps which indicate to you that the obsession is original. You're obsessed with the life force in you. So we all want to appear as though we are the best givers. We are the most generous. We are all, and people try to do that, especially after you die. Because whilst you are alive, they can see your meanness also. So they can't say, what a great being, no. Only when you die, they all look glum and they say, oh, he was so generous. He even did, most of it is lies anyway. Next bit.
عنده علم الغيب فهو يرى أم لم
How can
ينبأ
you? Bismillah. Because we are creatures on earth seeking that which is eternal, which is unearthly. So we're all the time trying to feel our way through our senses, the five senses of seeing, hearing, touching, and then we go to a higher level of senses, which is the imaginal, which is the reflectiveness, which is the, if you like, the inner qualities that brings in intuition, brings in other touches of the future. So the ayah here tells us that you never have knowledge of the unknown. You may have a tiny touch of it. So as you maintain your, if you like, continuity, you will never know the unknown. What you consider to be good for you now, you may discover soon that it was your poison, and vice versa. So, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. Ilm is the connector between the two aspects, seen and the unseen, cause and effect. You're not given except very little of that. You don't need more, because you are moving from one moment to another, and each moment is potent in itself. The last bit.
أم لم ينبأ بما في صحف موسى وإبراهيم الذي وفى.
So again, the Quran reminds us that this evolutionary process of human beings returning by will, by desire, by action towards their origin. So this has been already revealed many times before during the past few thousand years. This truth has been revealed to many creatures during the last 10, 20,000 years, different parts of the world, according to their culture, according to their language. It was not exclusive, it was inclusive. But the people around the Mediterranean had began aspects of settling civilization, individuality, and so on and so on, maybe in a wider geographical sphere. And that is why they had many, many, if you like, prophets and those who revealed the truth to them. And here we are after all those thousands of years, and every other village trying to kidnap something else from the next village. And if you look around the world right now, there are no less than 40 small wars. By small wars, I mean people are dying by the minute. This is who we are. After all of these thousands of years, and here we are, I acquire a bit more. This is my land. This is the land of my ancestors. What is your land? Let me see you acquiring it when you are dead. Look at us. After thousands and thousands of reminders of events, we are still very primitive and very cruel, and all of the other qualities that we despise, and we accuse others having it without seeing it in us. If you see a quality in the other, that means it's already in you. So be careful.
I'm lost now. وإن ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى وأن سعيه سوف يرى ثم يجزاه الجزاء الأوفى وإن إلى ربك المنتهى وأنه هو أضحك وأبكى وأنه هو أمات وأحيا.
All of the qualities we have been transmitted to us. Quality of generosity, affection, empathy, love, firmness, justice, even against yourself, and so on. All of these have been transmitted from the source. And so everything we do has its origin in Allah, in God. So we are here exhibiting aspects on earth which are essentially fields of energies that have emerged from the pure source itself. So we have to constantly refer back to our root, and this is loyalty. Wafa, wafa is to be honest. To be honest is to return it to its origins. Allah has put that in me. Therefore, I'm laughing. It's a bit of a relief. Or I'm crying. It's a bit of an expression of grief. So these are all expressions that have emerged from a zone of energy whose source is pure, pure, pure divine energy before anything manifests in it. Unless we reconnect it to its origin, then we are usurpers and thieves. We have to be honest. Loyalty is to the source which never changes. Honesty is again facing that which knows all. Who are you kidding? If there is true honesty, then you are liberated from what did you say, what did you didn't say, you have been there fully in that moment. And if you're that, then with that comes total trust. Trust in that there is perfection at all times, everywhere. If there is honesty, if there is trust, then all what is left is for you what this ayah says, you have to do your utmost, sa'i. Do your best now to help evolution to move, to help others who are less fortunate, to help those who are suffering. If you can, don't impose it.
Lost your connection, Andy Mohammed, please confirm.
I hear it.
Can you hear us?
Yes, you're back. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. It's better not to hear anything because you have a clean slate. But make sure that you don't have a lot of rubbish onto the slate. So if you don't safeguard it, it will happen. That's why barriers, that's why boundaries, that's why shariahs, that's why do's and don'ts. For your own sake, your own meaning, your ruh, your own meaning to be at one with the one in you, your own meaning that you are in this world, not of this world. So sa'i, doing your utmost, no reservation. Your reference here is to the source of light and life in you, not how to impress others or to be popular for a minute or two. These are not undesirables, but they are short-lived. What is most important for you is that total loyalty, honesty, and reference to that which is ever there, irrespective of time and place. Bismillah.
وأنه خلق الزوجين الذكر والأنثى من نطفة إذا تمنى وأن عليه النشأة الأخرى وأنه هو أغنى وأقنى.
We as human beings carry all the traces of billions of years of emerging from nowhere. Life, aware of life. Life, desiring to preserve life. Life, obsessed with life. That is me, and the so-called you and he and it. So this has emerged from the unseen with a specific point on earth, which is the point of conception. Souls, arwah, are like fires. The nature, the essence of fire is everywhere, but doesn't occur all the time. Just as well, otherwise we'll be frantic. It only occurs when there is enough heat for it to be sustained and burning other materials for its sustenance. This is, if these conditions are there, then it will suddenly come to life. It's for that reason, if you are trying to create fire out of friction, you have to keep at it until that heat that's being created by the movement of the stick, turning it around, is sufficiently hot enough in the microscopic sense, in the tiny sense, to bring, if you like, that material around it to burn, to acknowledge its origin is non-entity, burning itself, nothing there. It's yielding to its origin, not there. Back again to air and to the ash and to elementals. So, same thing as ruh. The arwah are there. Until the conditions are right in the womb, it won't come alive. And it will take a while for it to make sure that it is already there, it is functional. Then, if you like, the heavenly ruh comes into the womb. So this is who we are. Heavenly entities found the condition or situations possible, conducive after billions of years. In the eye of Allah, there is no time, instant, but in terms of the physical, chemical, biological, there is time, there is a flow. So this is who we are. Once you realize that with evolution, we begin to question until such time we want to know directly that it is the ruh in me that is my master, and it is the ruh in me that connects me with the cosmic master. It is the divine presence in me. I have to respect it. I have to be in reverence of it, and on and on. Then your kingdom is established. And your kingdom is a replica, is a tiny little, if you like, metaphor of the cosmic kingdom of Allah. Bismillah.
وأنه هو رب الشعرى وأنه أهلك عادنا الأولى وثمود فما أبقى وقوم نوح من قبل إنهم كانوا هم أظلم وأطغى والمؤتفكة أهوى فغشاها ما غشى فبأي آلاء ربك تتمارى هذا نذير من النذر الأولى.
Here we enter into a very strong reminder to the people who are ummis, whose culture is oral. They know a lot about what happened to different tribes, to different people, maybe down to even 1,000, maybe even more, 1,000, 2,000 years. We don't have a great deal of, if you like, reliable history of the way of the people of the Middle East and the Arabs, up to maybe about 2,500 years ago, a bit, and then becomes too vague. So here the ayah tells us, look here, look at all these people. They were reminded evolution did encompass them. They were constantly shown signs to them were necessary. They were, if you like, miracles. The miracle of prophets. The prophet would not have been considered one unless he showed them, taught them, shared with them a miracle that if they had gone against, they will suffer and they will be obliterated. And on this happened. And these memories and these stories and these exchanges carried on. So the same thing we now need to do ourselves. You and I and many other people around us it does not touch them if we constantly talk about Ad. But we'll understand it if we talk about the Second World War. How stupid events, completely unexpected, one led to the other and poof, the whole thing went up in the air and millions of people were slaughtered and many, many, many more millions suffered as a result, on and on. And we're still trying to learn some lessons from it, but they're all superficial lessons. We are not learning the fact that, oh, human being, you are not who you think you are. So stop imagining that you are the fellow who's going to save your nation and you are the father of the nation, because then they need to discover a woman to make her the mother of the nation and all of the other silly stories of the so-called 200 nations on earth. It is absurd what we are doing. And then you have to have the bird of a nation. And then you have to have a football field of the nation. And the coin, and on and on. It's all seeking identity. Do you know who you are personally? Now you are seeking collective identity? No, but personally is more difficult. I don't know who I am because I love sleep. And in my deep sleep, I don't know who I am. We don't have courage to face it. The whole thing is a preparation for the next phase when the illusion of who you are, your body, mind, identity, profile, personality, likes and dislikes all vanish. When Najm idha hawa. That's what happens. When your star ends, where are you? Where, what was it? Now, you wrote a biography. Big deal. Who wants it anymore? We're actually entering into a zone of experience in life that whatever was considered enjoyable, attractive, whatever, 10 years ago, soon it will be a historical memory. Whatever was, so much of what was considered to be worthwhile to have, no more. Think of the people now with lockdown. What a great blessing. If it continues for another 10 years, you're going to slowly end up with maybe 2-3 pairs of slippers and shoes and maybe few more pajamas, which look a little bit more like you can go shopping. That's about it. But go to any middle class home and look into their cupboards. You'll be horrified. No, but what have I got that? This jacket for that. And this, what about shoes? Shame. But you don't want to face it, you see, because it shows you how stupid you have been. And you don't want to be stupid because your ruh is beyond silly or not silly or intelligent or stupid. But yourself can be. Your nafs can be most idiotic unless it takes reference from its ruh. Bismillah.
أزفت الآزفة ليس لها من دون الله كاشفة أفمن هذا الحديث تعجبون وتضحكون ولا تبكون وأنتم سامدون فاسجدوا لله واعبدوا.
Allahu Akbar. So this conveyance of communication or revelation is at the highest level where there are no more high or low. It is not a voice of truth. Truth will not have a voice. Truth will have hundreds of means of connecting. Same thing as wahi, connected to the human being of the prophetic being, appeared as a shape of a being whom he liked very much and was a handsome human being. But equally also when it was ready, when Muhammad was ready for seeing the unseen within the scene, Jibreel appeared to him twice. So you must be ready for it. Otherwise, it's just a shock or a curiosity. You and I and every one of us need to prepare ourselves for a zone of experience that we have never in this life had other than occasional, a slight touch of it, the highest level of epiphany, or if you like, the unseen, tiny amount. Otherwise you won't last in your body. The voltage is too high. You know, the soul will leave the body anymore. It says, I'm ready. Each one of us is like being in a waiting room. Release from the limitations of time and space. Release from all of the ups and the downs and the uncertainties of the body and the mind. Can you imagine how many uncertainties there are within just the nervous system? Zillions of them, any instant. What if they stop communicating? What if only 50 of these cells decide today we're having a rest? You can't move your arm, you can't move your tongue, you can't move. What about all of these millions of other faculties? We don't give them any attention. We naturally put things in our mouth instantly. Hundreds of different, highly sophisticated laboratory tests goes on. We say, oh, it's too sour, too sweet. Try and do it in a physical lab. It will take you days and weeks and so on. We're clumsy, endowed with an amazing cosmic entity functioning on the earthy reality called the body and the mind and all the faculties. If this is not enough for you, what is enough for you? So if you enter into that zone, then you are truly prostrating in awe. What a greatness. Great everything around you, in you, above you, before you were born, after you're born, before you die, after you die. Magnificent journey that every human being from the earliest days were trying to unfathom, trying to discover. From the earliest stories, the human quest was that. What is eternity? What is the story of Uruk? Uruk means root. That's the name of the word Iraq. That's why it's been uprooted. No more root. Uruk is a Gilgamesh. What was it? The first established city. Beautiful river with enough fertilizer and silt in it. Suddenly, from 50, 100 families, they became thousands. And then nature again decided to divert the river. Finished. So Gilgamesh wanted to know what is the secret of eternity? Because the drive in each one of us is that which is eternal. Would they remember me 1,000 years after I die? Who is the you? Memory will be, life will be, not you. You as an entity. An entity is a fallen star. An entity is a photon which is born and will die. It's not a wave function. So reality will continue. Truth will continue. Life will continue. Comings and goings will continue. Your comings and my coming and your going and my going is a tiny flip. If you don't wake up to it now, Allah says in the Quran, and he who is blind in this will be blind in the next and more so. To be awakened in the next is to have insight, intelligence, until you live as a spiritual intelligence light. It doesn't matter. You left your body, celebration. You're still in the body, celebration. That means it still is needed. Maybe not for you, maybe for an ant you feed it, or anything. You don't know. We just don't know. Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillah. Thank you for your own sake. Salam alaikum.
Thank you, Shaykhna. Thank you, Shaykhna.